So what I'm going to talk about today is your career site, ATS, and Google for Jobs. I hope this is going to be quite interesting for you because I think there's a lot of discussion around Google for Jobs that has disappeared clouded over by the discussion, panic, and various other things around GDPR. So hopefully I'm going to bring it back to a little bit more of the interesting stuff around talent attraction. Who am I? As you can see, I've been far too long in this industry. Somebody said to me at an IHR event last year that I'd worked with many years ago in recruitment in the late 90s, introduced me to a team, said, "This is DJ." He was building recruitment sites before we thought we needed career sites and recruitment sites. I wasn't quite sure whether to take that as a compliment or just the fact that I was getting very old. I've been 17 years in recruitment marketing, so I've seen it gone from completely offline. And to give you an idea, we were an 80-man recruitment business spending £1 million in places like the FT, Times and County publications. Over the next 4 years, we reduced it to just over £250,000. That hurt because I was regularly beaten up by recruiters who said, "Where are our candidates going to come from?" So I had to get smart with the recruitment online quite quickly. I work with both agency and employers, so I see it from both sides. It's quite interesting to see the challenges from both types of people. And I've done a hell of a lot with integration. I used to work with applicant tracking systems. I've installed quite a few and actually been involved with the development and build of them. So I see both sides of the story. So what I want to focus on, there's basically three things, and those of you who came to an event back, I think it was about in April, and I talked about the good, the bad and the ugly with career sites. And effectively, there are three things I'm going to talk about today. So one is in terms of where we are now and what is truly ugly, what is bad, and actually what is good in career websites, and what can be done as of now. And the reason I'm going to set the scene with those two things is because there's a really big thing coming, and that's Google for Jobs. And if you get your house in order, the one thing to remember is Google for Jobs is going to be great for employers. So, where are we? Sorry, wrong way around. Where are we now? So, this is probably the worst, and I hope there's nobody from CPM actually here. This is probably the worst career site I've ever seen. And basically, CPM, for those of you who don't know, recruits marketing, point of sale type people, handing out freebies, and salespeople. And the line at the top there says, "The culture of our company means that we naturally encourage people to challenge themselves, grow new skills, and gain outstanding rewards and recognition." That's it. There's nothing else to actually support that. It's just a line. And then you've got a list of jobs. So they work with some great names. Diageo and a lot of people that want to get their product out to market. So that's probably the worst. This is a classic example of a career site that's been built internally and then has got the applicant tracking system pulled in what is called an iframe. So the job search bit there is actually effectively a window onto another website. The jobs actually appear, it's on careers.peopleclick, and what's actually happened is that the jobs are actually physically blocked to Google. So there's basically a bit of text that says it's called the robots.txt, and it says disallow, and that basically means that Google cannot find anything on that domain because they've got all their other clients. So that's a classic example where a career site has got an ATS integrated through an iframe. You've then got who uses Taleo here? There's a few people. Okay, you probably recognise that. That's the classic standard Taleo job search. So you have this beautiful website. Somebody will have spent a fortune with a media agency, a design agency, got lots of visuals, maybe some video, and there's this button, search for jobs. And that's where you end up. And the best one, you probably can't read it, but the first field there is job number. Do you know what most people put in there? 1, because they only want one job. They don't realise that actually that's the reference number. They just think that's actually the number of jobs you want. So that's a fairly classic example of Taleo. And this is an example I thought, actually, Dairy Crest, this is looking quite good. You can tell it's about the dairy. You've got cows in the background. But it's got information. It's got about our people, our values. I was thinking, where's the job search? Oh, there's a button there, vacancies and applications. I seem to be on another website. So I've now jumped onto their applicant tracking system, which To be fair, it's branded, it's got the same colours, and it's got cows at the top. But effectively, again, you've got the standard job search that is applicant tracking based. And this is a legacy of the fact that most applicant tracking systems started life about 15, maybe 20 years ago. And basically the web module, having sold applicant tracking systems, the tenders used to say, is your applicant tracking system web enabled? That was it. That was all they wanted to know. So basically what applicant tracking systems did was basically give you a web view of the same search that as recruiters you would need to find your jobs. So the classic question or answer that I get is, we've had our career site designed. It's lovely, it's brilliant, we've just launched it. But what actually is happening is you're going back to the Taleo module or the iGrass module if it was before then, or there are still people using iGrass, or the Brass Ring, the Lumess Talent Link. And what I always say to people is, what is your actual career site? Is it just a brochure site in terms of, is it just a website, or is it actually a marketing platform? And the conversations I've overheard going around the room is that actually everybody here in terms of recruitment is looking to be more innovative in terms of marketing and attracting talent. So actually they don't want the website to be static brochure. They actually want it to work with what they're doing on social, what they're doing on video. They want to update it. They want to keep it fresh. So actually it's a recruitment marketing platform. So when it comes down to optimizing your site, what you need to do is think about how people are going to find your website. Now, if you're a global brand, you probably don't need to actually have job search or anything else. You just have a big apply here. If you're Vodafone, people actually know of you. If you're British Airways, maybe Ryanair are having a bit of trouble at the moment with their pilots. But at the end of the day, you can rely on your brand to bring people through. And Nick Thompson always says to me, my problem isn't the number of applications at Vodafone, it's actually restricting them. But for everybody else out there, and I've had people say, well, I'm just an SME or a medium-sized company, why do we need a career site? People aren't going to find them. Well, actually, 80% of people, maybe slightly less, but we can say around 80% based on what Google say, will start their job search on Google. Whether they end up on a job board, a recruitment agency, or a career site, like everything we do in life, if we're looking for something new, we go for the big bad Google, and we just Google it. So what we want to make sure is that our jobs are visible. They're accessible in the same way as if you're searching for a new television, a new fridge freezer. I was talking to Rob earlier with John Lewis, in terms of how many times when you search for a fridge freezer you end up on the John Lewis site. You started on Google but you end up on JLP. So it's basically the same way in making your products visible. Your products are your jobs. And then once you've got people, you're getting people to your website, whether it's through active candidates finding your jobs or whether it is through social, you've got everything, you're interacting with them, you're engaging with them, you're showing people what it's like, you're talking about the employer brand, you're giving people the little insights in terms of the days in the life. That is everything. You're driving people back to your career site, because ultimately there are three things you want to make that visitor do. One, if they're active, you want them to apply for a job. Two, if they're not active, to actually engage with you and maybe read a bit of content, look to keep in touch, register an interest, sign up for a newsletter, something like that. Or thirdly, you want them to recommend. Because ultimately you're looking to get something out of that, and that is the same thing that happens with retail. And ultimately, wherever they've come from, you want that experience to be seamless. So whether they've come from LinkedIn, whether they've come from Facebook, Twitter, an email shot, Google, everything, each way in is seamless. They don't see a jarring effect and don't end up on the applicant tracking system and go, whoa, I've gone back 10 years, I've gone back 20 years in some respects, and they leave. So how do we do that? First of all, you've got to think like a job seeker. Okay? And the term shopping for jobs is coming up time and time again in terms of the actual what job seekers do in terms of finding jobs, but also what influences in the information they're gathering is the same as in terms of retail. So I make no excuse for saying job search equals shopping. I've been talking about this for years, but it really is true. We all know how to shop online. We're all expert online shoppers. And because of that, we only look for jobs maybe every couple of years. So actually what we fall back on is how we actually search for shopping, because that's what we know. So if you're going to attract people and you want to basically pick off those low-hanging fruit is make sure your site is Google friendly. So if anybody's looking for a job, and I don't mean just looking for a job with you, but is looking for a financial accountant job in Swindon, a marketing and sales job in Southampton, a retail sales job in Nottingham, a customer service assistant in Durham, that they can find those jobs because they don't know about you yet. So what we've got here is a classic example. You start on Google, type in your job title. So we know that 50% of job searches on Google are job title based. Another 15, maybe 17% are location based. So people put in job title and location. I am a senior structural engineer in Exeter. And you get a list of jobs. Invariably we have our friend Indeed appearing, and they sift through because they bounced around Indeed long enough, see a few job boards, and then here we've got careers at Atkins. Now it's quite a competitive search phrase, so they're on page 1, but they're still low down. But we know people want to apply to end users, employers. So here they come to the job, they read the job advert, they can see the recruiter, they can see other similar jobs. The same way John Lewis saying, if you like this fridge freezer, you might like this one. They come down, calls to action in terms of apply. It's a long job spec, I do apologise. Ellie, we must have words. And then you've got Inside Atkins. So Ellie mentioned that earlier in terms of giving insight to the projects that actually this person could be involved with. Scroll to the top because we know people go up and down the job and then they click apply. And that will go through, and in terms of Ellie mentioned in terms of integration, they complete a quick form and the details get pushed into Taleo. And why does this work? Because basically we're making the job adverts easy for Google. So this has been happening in recruitment agencies, on job boards, and it's all come from retail. So we make sure that the title is what Google can find. It's in the URL, and also that the key hook line is actually pulled into the actual advert on Google. So we do that automatically so that people don't have to think about it when they're writing adverts. If you write a good advert, inherently it becomes Google friendly. And that means not writing lots of jargon. So people don't advertise for an ABC 1 level 2 design engineer. They search for a design engineer. So some of it is getting the structure right. If you get it wrong, there's two things. I'm about to show you an example. SuccessFactors have bought a company called Jobs2Web about 8 years ago. And Jobs2Web was a plug-in job board that basically made sure your jobs were optimized for Google. Technology platform that overthought things. So I've given an example. This is from an award-winning website, Jaguar Land Rover. It's a fantastic looking website, but this is what happens if I search for an occupational therapist job with Jaguar Land Rover. So I put in, very specific, occupational therapy jobs, so occupational health jobs, Jaguar Land Rover. So Google's already putting me down that channel. And I get click on the top one, which is Jaguar Land Rover's career site, and I come to this landing page, occupational health landing page. All of those jobs are engineering jobs. I'm like, hold on, I've got onto the wrong page. So I click back, and I go to the next one down, which is actually a specific job. And I come and it says, oh, sorry, this vacancy is filled. Nothing else, it just tells me the job is filled. So this has all been optimized for Google, but nobody's actually thought about what happens when nothing's available. Do I have any calls of action? Sign up for jobs by email. Okay, we don't have at the moment, but find out what it's like to work in occupational health. So there's no calls to action. It's literally been designed purely to try and fool Google, but it's not been implemented right. So there's ways, it's about getting it right and thinking about the user journey, not just trying to be a technology whiz. Why is this important? There's a huge change coming. How many people have heard of Google for Jobs? So most of you. Okay. So Google for Jobs is going to make a difference in a really positive way to employers. So if you take nothing away from here, take away the fact that Google for Jobs, Google wants to help you. Okay, it wants loads of data, but ultimately it wants people to find your jobs. So what is it? So for you, those of you who haven't seen it, basically, I suppose, how many people have seen Google Flights when they've been searching for flights? So you search for a flight and a little box appears which says, I was looking at flights from my local airport, Southampton to Zurich, and it basically comes up and it starts giving me opportunities to look around. It's exactly the same. So it basically will automatically recognise jobs, careers, recruitment search phrases, and at the top of the search, below the paid for, because Google's obviously going to try and get you to click on sponsored links, you have this little box. What is absolutely obvious and critical, Indeed is not in there. So those of you who get a lot of visitor traffic from Indeed, for whichever method you're using, those organic listings, so the ones you're not paying for, are not appearing in Google for Jobs. Big change. And they're basically taking Indeed head on. What it does offer is a really good filters. It has job alerts. It will promote employer reviews. It'll also give commute times. So it's going to be really useful for somebody not only finding jobs, but also how long it takes to get there. So some key things there. It's basically, it was displayed for any job-related query, and I've been playing around with this for quite a while. It was released back in June. Google get very annoyed when we keep asking them, when's it going to come in the UK then? Come on, tell us. And to the point that I was chatting with Matt Alder the other day, who interviewed on one of his podcasts, Chat from Google, and he said to him, don't ask me about that. So Matt obviously asked him about that. And basically, what Google's saying, they know that there is demand in the UK, and that's as far as they'll go. But knowing Google, we'll just turn up one day, go into Google, and it will be there. I'll come on to that in a minute. It's got great filtering, so you can refine the job very easily and very quickly. And ultimately, it's going to have a one-click apply. Now, we don't really know much about this because how are they going to do a one-click apply into every single applicant tracking system out there? Well, Google spend millions on R&D, so if anybody's going to do it and have a standard approach, they will. And this is the question, is it already here? So I switched over, you switch into Google.com and make sure that Google thinks you're in the US, and you start searching. Well, I was searching for Atkins. I was just seeing what happens. You start with branded, see what appears. Oh, suddenly, rather than the US jobs, something very obvious happened. It was pulling all the UK jobs. It picked up my location, and suddenly the UK jobs were appearing. I haven't seen that before. It's always been US. So this suggests that Google's already collecting all the jobs out there in the UK, merrily pulling it into the database and scraping along. And what's also interesting, you get insight of how it's going to categorise or prioritise. So you've got the Atkins career site, so these are the jobs that are being pulled because they're Google friendly. But you've also got here Fish For. I haven't seen Fish For in years. It's one that disappeared from my radar many years ago. But it's appearing, so job boards are appearing for client advertised roles. And this is what it looks like. You click into a role and you get all the other roles. So again, I'm displayed all the other roles at Atkins. I can scroll through. I can click on, I can go to the website, but what's really useful is I can turn on email alerts for this search. Literally just put my email address in, it'll automatically start sending me emails. Now, I did this, I turned it off pretty quickly. The reason being is that we pulled jobs from Atkins every half hour. Every half hour I was getting an alert saying new jobs were being appeared because I hadn't filtered it. Yeah, it was literally all Atkins. So that said two things to me. One, it was working, but B, also it was almost indexing jobs in real time because we pulled jobs in half-hourly slots and they were appearing directly on in Google and they were telling me about it. And that's quite scary how fast they're actually finding the jobs. Something that's even more scary, I don't know if you can quite see it. So we're working on a project with Travis Perkins, and one of the reasons we're working with them is their jobs are hidden in Avature. So at the moment they're still in Avature. So this is a really good example of what happens if Google can't find your jobs. So I just put Travis Perkins jobs, and basically all the jobs are appearing are branded adverts in job boards and Glassdoor, and recruitment consultancies right down the bottom if they're putting the name in. So that means that if you've hidden your jobs, you're still going to be reliant on paying job boards to actually get people to apply for jobs. And that's quite an interesting point, even though I've searched for my company name. So that's why it's really important, Google Jobs is, get it right and it's going to really benefit you. Get it wrong and it could actually be really hard work. So in terms of summary, the results are going to be localized by default, so based on where you are. So Rob, we were talking about in terms of geo-personalization for pushing jobs that are local to where somebody is to them. Google's going to start doing that automatically. Salary is going to be really, really important because like everything, Google wants lots of information to actually be able to allow the candidate to find the most relevant jobs. And it will find out very quickly that more candidates click on jobs with salary than without salary. And I know that is a problem in direct employer world because of internal politics and everything else, but be warned that if you don't have salary and it's something you can take back to the business, it's going to be less likely that people are going to actually be able to find you jobs who are actively looking. Now, I know there's a multitude of hoops that have to be jumped for that, but I'm bringing it to your attention. Commute time. So again, making sure that you put exactly where the job is. Again, this is going to work against recruitment agencies and adverts on job boards, because no recruitment agency wants to put the specific location of an actual job, because they'll have all the competitors. It's the classic one. My agency clients will say, oh no, we're not saying clients, we're not saying where they are, because our competitors will be on the phone. The fact is that actually that's really beneficial to somebody who's looking for a job, because they'll find out how long it takes to get there, whether it's actually at the time they're searching or actually in peak traffic. What we're unclear about is how personalised this is going to be, because Google likes to try and base all of its results on what we're actually looking at. We don't know how personal this is going to get. For example, is it going to end up with Google? I look at lots of cars and things like that. It's going to think, I actually want a job in the car-related industry. Or if you're on Facebook and looking at lots of pictures of kittens, does it think you want to be a vet? I don't know, but Google's pretty damn clever at working out what people are interested in. So we know it will come. The big thing, and why I mentioned Indeed, is about deduping. So when you advertise a job, that job will appear on different agency sites. It will appear on different job boards, and it will appear on aggregators and any number of platforms that scrape your adverts. So Google doesn't like duplication. In fact, it penalises duplication. So there is going to be some ranking. Now, we know that they're doing partnerships with LinkedIn. We know they're doing partnerships with Monster and Glassdoor. So these are people that are going to have the job adverts on their sites. But in terms of priority, who is going to be at the top of the pile? Now, when you talk to anybody in Google, what Google want to do is quite simple. Google want to give their visitors, their seekers, their searchers, they want them to provide the most relevant and original content and authentic content. Now, as employers, you are the original publisher. You are the person that actually produced that content. So if you looked only at what Google wants to do, that gives you an insight into what Google is going to prioritise. And if it can find your jobs and index them correctly, and it knows it's attached to you, then naturally we expect employer jobs to be at the top of the actual results. And then it's a case of how it's going to rank under there. We suspect it probably will be LinkedIn, Glassdoor, job boards with branded adverts, recruitment agencies with branded adverts, and then it'll be unbranded adverts. But what we're absolutely convinced of, no, Indeed. So that is, and I personally, I actually think it's going to kill off Indeed. Because they are building, if you've heard that they're doing a huge radio advertising campaign, they're doing a lot on TV, because what they're going to try and do is actually become the destination, so people actually go to them to find a job rather than Google. But that's changing behaviour of human beings. We would naturally go to Google, and I think it's a brave decision. In fact, they're blocking Google from finding, from what we understand, is blocking Google from finding their paid-for jobs. So they're prioritising those, so they want people to come to it, which is why they're then promoting it on TV and radio. So actually it's a case of, that's a really bold move. It'll either make or break. I personally think that Google, they're big enough to take on pretty much anybody these days, apart from maybe the EU, but that's another story. So in terms of priorities, there's three things I want you to think about. One, which I make no promise of the fact that I sound like a stuck record on this, is make sure your jobs are Google friendly and not hidden your ATS, because then you can forget about active job seekers. You don't need to worry about them because they're going to find you. You just need to make sure you're focusing on writing good quality adverts. Two, Google's going to benefit you guys. Google is going to make it easier for people to find your jobs. And make sure your career website is good and not the ugly. Thank you. Any questions?